All right, I just finished a little bit of unfinished welding and cleaning up on those rear camber boxes. So this week I'm going to start on something else inside. I'm trying to get the interior to the point where I can get the roll bar back in. So today's project is going to be lowering the front seats as low as possible. Check it out.
Garage time.
Okay, here's a final look at those camber boxes, and you know, they cleaned up pretty nice, just ground them smooth, and you know, finished up the flanges on the outside there. Makes a little mouth for the banana arm to go into. So I'm happy with that. Okay, then next up are these seat rails. So there's this inner one that's attached to the tunnel, and then there's this outer one which is attached to kind of this longitudinal thing. And both of them are, you know, pretty high. So with my aftermarket seats, by the time I get the sliders on there, it's way too high. And just like I mentioned in the last video, the goal of this car is to handle well. So the lower the center of gravity, the lower the seats with the driver and the passenger does a lot to lower the center of gravity. So I'm going to put my seats as low as I can. All right, I'm skipping around a little bit on these videos, but the goal is to get the roll bar back in the car, and I need to establish the height of the seats before I can put the harness bar across the roll bar, and that's why I'm doing it now. Also, I can't do more on the camber boxes, the sheet metal that goes around the camber boxes, until I get all the suspension back in and sort of look at where I need to clearance the seat pans. So I'm going to hold off on that. I'm going to kind of do a little bit of an easier project right now. All right, the seats that I have for this car are the Sparco, I think they're R100s. And they're, you know, a low-priced seat, not quite a racing seat. It does have some racing features like the harness holes, but it's a reclinable seat, so the back is adjustable and the forward and aft positions adjustable. It's not maybe the seat I'm going to use long term, but my thoughts are that if I lower these seat mounts as low as they can go, then I can always, you know, build it up again to go higher if the seat's too low. It's easier to go up than it is to go down. Okay, one of the first things I noticed with these seats are the really small hardware that's used to secure the seat rails. These are, I think, you know, 6mm screws. They're super thin, which I guess is okay. That's what they have. And then this bracket should be easy to remove. It's only got a weld on this side and then a weld on this side. So this should come right out. Now, one concern is what's inside this tunnel. I believe the fuel lines run right up against this. So as I relocate it and weld it down lower, I probably need to remove the fuel lines. At least there's some vents or something. They're plastic tubing in there, so I don't want to melt anything. So let's get going. Okay, I just checked using my phone here on Pelican Forum's website, and turns out that the fuel lines in this car are plastic. So this can be a very dangerous repair if you're working on a car that runs. I mean, this car hasn't had fuel in it for years, and someone was nice enough to describe the whole procedure. They even included a secret map of the tunnel inside the tunnel. So right here in the seat area, there's a tunnel that keeps the fuel line up real close to where the seat bracket is. And this could be really dangerous. So if you're welding right up against that plastic fuel line, it's got fuel in it, you definitely could be in trouble with a fire. So please be careful. I'm going to remove these fuel lines anyways. They're probably not in good shape given how this car's been sitting so long. So that's what I'm going to start with now. Here's the lines I'm talking about, and this is definitely plastic. So I'm just trying to get this bushing out. I'm just going to push it through with a screwdriver, probably soap it up a little bit. So there's a thinner one and then there's a thicker one down here. And because the trans is out on this car, the engine's out, I can see it from the backside. It's definitely a plastic hose. So I'm going to push the bushings out and then try to slide it through. Should be easy on my car. This is just soap and water. Okay, I just wrestled out those fuel lines. I got the bushings pushed out. That wasn't too hard. I had some clamps I had to get by the front steering rack. Those were kind of hard to get to, but it's out now. I did take some careful notes about the routing of the fuel lines, so when I replace it, it can go right back where it was. And I didn't pull like a tracer through. I think it's gonna be okay because I have so much access to just push it back in. So let me show you what they look like. All right, this is the engine side. And these are those little, bushing grommet things that you got to push through. And so I was able to push both of these out from the inside, from the tunnel. These are zip tied together, and then there's like a clamp that clamps it to the rear seat pans. And then down here, through the tunnel, these had, I don't know if these are pre-bent like that or not, but these have a bend to them. And these old lines are like braided, potentially like maybe even the original ones has that red tracer wire on it. These are very crunchy. I mean, I could barely bend them. So this might just break if I just bend it a little bit. Super brittle on the end. These I think are the original fuel lines, which is no bueno. I assume this is the return line, smaller clamp. And this hose, same situation, very old. I'm wondering what's in seat box A. It's a seat. So here's that Sparco seat, and it's a pretty low profile base. Probably less height than the stock seat. But these seat rails, probably add about an inch. Here it is sitting upright on the bench. You can kind of get an idea of the height here. It's less than a hand. So the distance between the mounting holes on this is, looks like 13.5 inches. And I believe that's narrower than what's in the car. Yep, this is 16 1/8. But the issue is that it's not just the seat rails, it's the actual fabric portion won't fit down below these two rails. So the best thing to do is cut them off and weld them lower. So right now I only have about, there's only about 3 inches between me and the steel roof. So with a helmet on, that's not going to be enough. And even if I don't put a headliner in, there's just not enough room. I'm about 6 feet tall. So I definitely want to lower it at least 2 inches, maybe 3 inches. And that means that, it'll be almost even with the pedals. Or the seat actually might be lower than the pedals, but that's okay. Even though the car is on a big angle right now because I'm working on the back, I can see well over. I mean, I can see almost the middle of the headlights. So I want to be much further down to where I'm just looking over the dashboard, sort of. Can't even shrink down. I mean, even right here, this is where I can just stop. I just can't see the headlights right here. So that would be a distance of, that would be 7 inches. So if I dropped the seat 4 inches, that would be like the max. And I don't even think I could drop it 4 inches. But let's see what we can do. If you're curious how much these seats weigh, I'm going to put them on the scale right now. Okay, I'm just balancing them there on that seat rail, and these weigh about, looks like 34 pounds. So they aren't the lightest seats, but they, are adjustable and somewhat comfortable. Okay, I just exposed the welds so I can see where I'm cutting. I'm going to be cutting these off. So I found some more spot welds here along this edge, so I'm just going to drill those out. There's actually quite a few. Yeah, you saw me using this this air chisel, and it makes really fast work of getting this bracket off, but it does create some damage. Like right here, there's a little bit of a tear right here, and then there's a dent caused by the tool used to split the spot welds. It's not a big deal. All right, this side doesn't appear to have any spot welds, but I've already cut through those seam welds with my angle grinder. I'm gonna go over it a little bit more with my cutoff wheel and try to break this free without just denting up the car. Yeah, that's better. Just like pulling teeth. Yeah, this one came off a little cleaner than the inside. I just pried it off. Once I relieved these edges, it was able to just hinge up and then break those welds free. Here's the removed parts. They're actually in great shape. Now it's sitting as low as it'll go. So this shoulder right here is this is not removable. This is part of the car. It's actually contacting the width of the seat here at the bottom. And you can see the track has probably like an inch of space here. So it's contacting on this side, and then it's also contacting on the other side. Let me go over there. Okay, on this side, the base of the seat is actually contacting the tunnel. And it's not allowing it to go all the way down. It's got about a ½ an inch. I don't know if you can see the seat rail there, about a ½ an inch from the actual floor. So I think I've determined the lowest possible position of the seat. So now I'm going to figure out how to attach it. Okay, these metal bars here represent the location of the Sparco seat rails. And they're here just for illustration purposes. As I'm trying to plan the mounts, I don't know if the factory style mounts cantilevered off this edge all the way, that's much wider than the factory edge was. That's almost 3 inches. So I don't know if it's wise to cantilever the mounts off of this shoulder here. I think what's better to do, I think the better solution would be to create some pods that actually attach the seats to the floor. I'm not drilling through the floor, but if I weld some pods on top of the floor, then I can just attach the seat rails directly to those pods. Well, that was easy. That's a lot of rubble. Okay, that's the majority of all this tar removal, and there's still a little bit remaining in this far corner. It just didn't want to chip out. I'll probably get it with my wire brush, but that's not going to affect me today. The next thing to do is, there's some dents in the floor pan. I don't know if you can tell here, but this is pushed in and it's raised up a little bit. So I want to take care of that to make sure that I have a level surface to mount these seat rails. Here's another dent right here. You can really tell how high that is. Back here, this whole portion is kind of lifted up, and there's large depressions right here. It's all just kind of caved in. This car's had a hard life for sure. Here's more. The other side, I don't know if you can see on the other side, but the other side's actually worse. Some of it's actually bent down, some of it's bent up. Okay, all the dents are removed now. This pan is pristine, at least in the area where the seats are. I mean, there's a huge dent up here on the front, but all the little ripples and little kinks are sort of out of this section. So now it's finally time to plan the seat pods. This job's a little harder than I thought. Okay, this template was made on my computer, and I think it'll make sense in a second. Okay, I'm thinking about doing something like this where I can weld it to the floor, just plug weld to the floor, and then have this attached here to the tunnel. And then there'll be a hole here with a floating fastener on the back, so I can just drill the seat rails right into that. Okay, I hope you find it interesting watching me fumble through making this part. You know, this brake is not working like it's supposed to. I can't get the dies all the way in because this tube has collapsed. It's kind of a disaster, but I'm just trying to push through. I want to get these done today. So I've got it formed as best I can with the brake and just some regular hand tools here. So next up is to you know, start welding these corners, stiffen it up so I can kind of get this last flange right where I want it. I probably shouldn't have bent this as soon as I did because it's a little bit offset. So that's just, you know, learn for the next one. But I'll get them done. And there it is, sitting nice and flat. I've also worked out how far to drill the hole from the edge of the part, kind of based on the width available in the car and what the Sparco seat rails are. So the Sparcos are 13 and 9/16 hole pattern, and then available space in the car is 18 inches from tunnel to longitudinal. So if you kind of subtract those two and divide by 2, you get 2.219. That's where I'm going to drill the hole off the edge of the part. I went with a pretty large hole here. I'm not going to use those little 6mm screws. The hole that is in the seat rails, I think, is like a 10mm, so I'll use that. But I'm not going to use fixed nuts on the back. So I don't want the seats to bind when they slide in and out. So this needs to be adjustable at least on one side. I'll probably do it to all four. Okay, here's the plan for this floating nut. So I took this bare nut that I just had, and these are metric, by the way, and I added on these little ears to it. So this is welded on just one side, so it's got these ears, and that's going to go over the hole. And then this big construction washer, I stripped the plating off of it. It goes right there, and then I'm going to just MIG weld this to these two edges so that this can't drop out of the way. And that's going to keep it captive while it floats around. And then when you go to torque it down, this can only turn so far. So you can see this is floating around in there, and it's only, it's probably an 1/8 inch of adjustment either way. But that's going to keep, the seat from binding and running into the edges because it's such a tight fit with the chassis. I thought it was worth the effort to make this float around. Here's the back side. It's not too pretty on the back, but you'll never see this. This is all hidden. So this should be trouble-free for years to come and binding free. I'm just going to trace this feature here, this little bump here, right where it meets the tunnel. I need to clearance this right here so it can fit flat against the floor and then weld it in. I just tack welded in the first seat pod, you know, it's fitting okay. It's roughly lined up with the other hole, you know, on the passenger side. That's why I haven't cut that one out yet. I'm trying to keep it there for reference. The new slides have a lot of adjustment. So this should work. I'm gonna grab the seat and just double check these hole locations. Okay, the seat's just sitting there. I got this rail right on top of the mount here, and this looks like it's perfect. I have a little bolt here. I'm just gonna see if I can get that in. Okay, so the bolt is in, and it's you know, very loose, but it's in the right position. Let me go to the other side and show you the clearance between the tunnel. Okay, I just walked around to the other side of the car, and you can see the seat is basically touching the tunnel. And then right down here, you can see that shiny bolt. That's right where that is held in place with the new seat pod. So it's likely I'm gonna need spacers to get this seat up just a little higher so it will actually slide. But all I'm after right now is just the correct hole distance. So this can be fully welded in, and I'm gonna start making some more. All right, I was able to get one more of these done. It went a little quicker than last time, only because I'm just kind of getting the hang of it. But I got the floating fasteners in there, and it just needs to be clearanced, just like I did on the front one. It needs to be clearanced. This time there's a depression in the floor. It has to kind of go over, so I might have to cut a little more off one of the legs. But unfortunately, I am out of time. I really wanted to get all four of these in and at least have the driver's seat bolted firmly to the floor, but it just didn't work out. I'm a day behind schedule this week. It's already Friday. It's dinner time, so I need to call it quits. Enough is enough. I'll be up late tonight doing the edit, so it'll be ready for upload on Saturday morning. So please enjoy your weekend, guys, and take care.